Welcome to the pre-application conference call for the fiscal year 2018 Legal Assistance for Victims Grant Program, also referred to as the LAV program. The Office on Violence Against Women, also referred to as OVW, is convening this pre-application conference call to go over the FY 2018 solicitation for the LAV program. I am Jan-Sheri Morris, and with me are Shannon Maltby, formerly Gaskins, Sandy Van Orden, and Lauren Asikas, Associate Director. Shannon, Sandy, and I work on the LAV unit. Lauren is a unit supervisor. The purpose of this pre-recorded webinar is to provide information regarding the LAV solicitation. We will cover highlights of the solicitation in today's webinar. However, it is not the intent, nor is there sufficient time, to go over every aspect of the solicitation. All applicants are responsible for reading the solicitation and reviewing the contents of all application materials and ensuring that a complete application is submitted. LAV program staff cannot provide any feedback to applicants about the quality of an applicant's proposal or provide any information outside of what is presented in the solicitation. LAV program staff will be available throughout the period that the solicitation is open to respond to any questions about application requirements. Please feel free to send questions about the LAV solicitation to the LAV program email box at ovw.lav@usdoj.gov. If you have the LAV solicitation in front of you, today's webinar will follow the order of topics as listed in the solicitation. Eligibility is mentioned on the cover of the solicitation as well as on pages 6 through 7. Eligible applicants are private nonprofit entities, publicly funded organizations not acting in a governmental capacity, such as law schools, territorial organizations, Indian tribal governments, tribal organizations, and Indian tribal consortia. Both new and continuation applications are being accepted. Grantees that receive LAV funding for 36 months in fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017 are not eligible to apply. You will also note on the cover of the solicitation that you must register by January 16, 2018. Registration includes several steps. 1. Obtaining a DUNS number. 2. Ensuring that you register with the SAM system. And 3. Registering on grants.gov. Every applicant must obtain a Data Universal Number System, DUNS number, and register online with System for Award Management, SAM, well before the grant deadline. There is a reason that we set a deadline of January 16th, as the process to register for a DUNS number and SAM can be lengthy. If you do not have a DUNS number and or not current in the SAM system, you should begin this process as soon as possible. Register with grants.gov no later than January 16th. The registration process is not one that can be completed quickly. It can take days, and you should begin the process as soon as possible. Every year we have a handful of applicants that did not make the deadline because they were delinquent with their SAM and or grants.gov registration. If you are considering applying, a letter of registration should be submitted to OVW by January 11th. A letter of registration is not mandatory. However, they are very helpful to us internally in attempting to identify the potential volume of applications that are expected to be received and to plan accordingly for peer review process. Refer to Appendix B for a sample letter of registration. If you have any questions regarding the LAV solicitation, contact OVW at 202-307-6026. This is our main number at OVW, but you will be directed to an LAV staff person. You may also email any questions to ovw.lav@usdoj.gov. LAV applications will be submitted through grants.gov. If you have questions specific to the registration or submission process through grants.gov, please contact grants.gov customer support at 1-800-518-4726. This number can also be found on page II of the solicitation and on grants.gov website. Grants.gov customer service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the exception of federal holidays. OVW anticipates to notify all applications of funding decisions by October 1, 2018. Page 1 of the solicitation provides background on the history and goals for the LAV program. The purpose of the LAV program is to increase the availability of civil and criminal legal assistance needed to effectively aid adult and youth victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking who are seeking relief in legal matters relating to or arising out of that abuse or violence at minimum or no cost to victims. The LAV grant program supports the provision of holistic legal services. For example, survivors may also need legal assistance with other legal matters relating to or arising out of their abuse or violence, including family matters such as divorce, child custody or child support, immigration, administrative agency proceedings, housing, and assistance related to human trafficking as described herein. Any services funded under the LAV grant program must be linked to legal assistance. Please note that LAV grant program funds may not be used to provide criminal defense services. You can review some examples of activities that are beyond direct legal services but that are linked to legal assistance that may be supported with LAV funds on the top of page 2. The fiscal year 2018 LAV grant program has 3 purpose areas. You will find this information on page 2 of the solicitation. Please review the purpose areas carefully, as project activities funded through the LAV program must fall under one or more of these purpose areas. I do want to discuss purpose area number 3 in a little more detail. You will note that purpose area number 3 states not more than 10% of the funds awarded may be used for this purpose of pro bono legal assistance. This requirement applies to the entire amount of LAV funding appropriated for the year. This is something that OVW monitors internally. Applicants are not required to limit their proposals to 10% pro bono legal assistance. Information regarding the 2 priority areas under the LAV program for this year can be found on pages 2 through 3 of the solicitation. Applications proposing activities in the following priority areas will be given special consideration during the review process. Sexual assault-focused applications for LAV program will prioritize projects that meaningfully address and focus primarily on serving victims of non-intimate partner sexual assault. Applications submitted under this priority area that propose to serve 80% or more of their grant activities on sexual assault legal services may request up to $800,000 in funding for 36 months. Under the definition and grant conditions applicable to the LAV grant program pursuant to the Violence Against Women Act, as amended, legal assistance including services and assistance to victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking who are also victims of severe forms of trafficking in persons. This means that applicants can apply to serve individuals who are both victims of trafficking and victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. The LAV program will prioritize projects that meaningfully address trafficking. Applicants proposing to serve trafficking victims must specify that they are proposing to serve victims of trafficking, demonstrate capacity to serve this population. The applicant can demonstrate this through their own expertise or through the expertise of the partnership agency they will be working with on the project. They must partner with federal, state, and/or local law enforcement and prosecution to develop comprehensive response protocols to ensure that trafficking victims are identified and referred for appropriate services, specify the specific group of victims they plan to serve, for example, victims of sexual assault who are also victims of sex trafficking, or victims of domestic violence who are also victims of forced labor trafficking, and they must specify any services that they plan to provide to meet the unique needs of the population specified. Note that throughout the application content section, the following subsections will ask for additional information if an applicant is applying under one of the 2 priority areas: purpose of application, what will be done, who will implement the project, and the memorandum of understanding or the statement of expertise. Pages 4 through 5 will address activities that compromise safety and recovery out of scope activities and unallowable activities. Please note on page 4 of the solicitation that number 4 discusses cases involving the Child Protective System. Please note that you may not use LAV funds for this type of representation unless the child dependency hearing involves allegations relating to or arising out of abuse of the client only. This does not include abuse to the children. Applications including items listed in this section may be removed from consideration or may receive a point deduction during the review process. We are not going to spend time reviewing these sections. However, we strongly recommend that you read these sections carefully and contact us directly if you have any questions, as additional language has been included in the solicitation to clarify several sections from previous years. All awards are subject to the availability of appropriated funds and any modifications or additional requirements that may be imposed by law. There is no guarantee that funds will be available in the future. Therefore, OVW encourages applicants to develop a plan to sustain project activities and federal funding through this program ceases to be available. The grant award period is for 36 months, beginning on October 1st, 2018. Funding levels for 2018 are as follows. New and continuation applications that are proposing to provide primarily domestic violence-focused legal services or less than 80% sexual assault-focused legal services may request up to $600,000 for the entire 36-month period. New and continuation applications proposing to provide 80% or more non-intimate partner sexual assault-focused legal services may request up to $800,000 for the entire 36-month period. OVW has the discretion to award grants for greater or lesser amounts than requested and to negotiate the scope of work and budget with applicants prior to the award of the grant. The LAV grant program typically makes awards in the range of $400,000 to $800,000. However, you may submit a proposal for less than $400,000. OVW estimates that it will make up to 60 awards this year. The list of eligible applicants is located on pages 6 through 7. Applications that are submitted by ineligible entities or that do not meet all program eligibility requirements will not be considered for funding. In the solicitation, it states, Family Justice Centers are not considered domestic violence and or sexual assault victim service providers under the LAV program. To clarify, a government-led Family Justice Center is not a victim service provider under the LAV grant program. A Family Justice Center led by a community-based agency may be a victim service provider under the LAV grant program if it is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization that assists or advocates for domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking victims with a documented history of effective work concerning domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. Mere co-location of services provided by other organizations does not qualify without direct victim services provided by the organization itself. Victim service providers that are partners in government-led family justice centers or community-based agency-led family justice centers are also eligible to apply as partners under the LAV grant program if they meet all other requirements of the solicitation. Nonprofit-led family justice centers that do not meet the definition of victim service providers are eligible to apply but will need to partner with a victim service provider. Applicants proposing to provide legal assistance with LAV funding must certify in writing to the criteria listed on page 7 and 8. This certification shall take a form of a letter on letterhead, signed and dated by the authorizing official. The signed certification letter must be uploaded as a separate attachment in grants.gov. A sample certification letter can be found in Appendix F. All lead applicants that are not domestic violence and or sexual assault victim service providers are required to enter into a collaborative working relationship with sexual assault and or domestic violence victim service providers within the community to be served. A complete overview of the criteria used to determine a domestic violence and or sexual assault victim service provider can be found on pages 8 through 9. Additionally, the sexual assault and or domestic violence victim service provider must be involved in the development and implementation of the project. If the lead applicant is an organization with a primary mission to provide services to victims of crime, generally, a community action agency, a community-based improvement corporation, a law school, or is a legal service program, that organization must partner with a domestic violence or sexual assault program. An applicant without the required partnership may be removed for consideration. An applicant can only submit one application per organization in response to the solicitation. If an applicant submits multiple versions of the same application, OVW will review only the most recent version of the applications submitted before the deadline. The complete application package is available on grants.gov or at the OVW website at www.justice.gov/OVW. Applicants wishing to request a paper copy of the application materials should email their request to ovw.lev@usdoj.gov. The required documentation for a complete application package begins on page 11 of the solicitation. Applicants should anticipate that failure to submit an application that contains all of the specified elements will negatively affect the review of the application and may result in the application not being considered for funding. It is the responsibility of the applicant to ensure that a complete application is submitted by the deadline. OVW will not contact applicants for missing items. Applicants should not submit documents that were not specifically asked for in the solicitation. Providing information that was not requested, such as letters of support from other organizations in your community or service area, will not increase the likelihood that an application will be selected for funding. Please carefully review the formatting and technical requirements on page 10. Points may be deducted for applicants that do not adhere to the formatting and technical requirements. Please read the entire list of requirements. Applications must include the following required documents and demonstrate that the program eligibility requirements have been met: project narrative, budget detail worksheet and narrative, memorandum of understanding, MOU, or statement of expertise in providing legal representation for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and/or dating violence. The statement of expertise replaces the internal memorandum of understanding that has been required in previous years. In addition to the application being scored on these documents, the summary data sheet will also be scored. The summary data sheet may be single or double space. Applications that do not include all of the required components will be considered substantially incomplete and will not be considered for funding. Your application should include an abstract that does not exceed 2 pages double space. The project narrative may not exceed 20 pages. It must include the following 3 sections. 1. Purpose of application. 2. What will be done. And 3. Who will implement the project. A budget and budget narrative can be a separate document or included in the budget are required. The budget must reflect 36 months of project activity. It should also include funds to attend OVW-sponsored training and technical assistance in the amount of $10,000 minimum for new and continuation applicants and $12,000 minimum for applicants from the U.S. territories, Alaska, or Hawaii. Applicants may include more than the minimum amounts. The budget should also include or refer to Appendix A for budget guidance and sample budget. This section can be found beginning on page 17 of the solicitation. Please carefully read the requirements for the MOU and the statement of expertise found on page 17. Some key highlights of the MOU, which is a document containing the terms of the partnership and roles and responsibilities between 2 or more parties. Applications from nonprofit, non-governmental, or tribal victim service providers or governmental rape crisis centers that as their primary mission provide services to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and/or stalking victims who partner with an organization that has expertise in providing legal services must obtain an MOU that includes the legal services organization and any other organizations that the applicant is partnering with to implement the project. Applications from lead applicants who are legal services, law schools, organizations that provide services to victims of crime generally, community action agencies, and community-based improvement corporations must partner with at least one external domestic violence and/or sexual assault program and must submit an MOU. Some key highlights of the Statement of Expertise are applications from lead applicants that are nonprofit, non-governmental, or tribal victim service providers or governmental rape crisis centers that as their primary mission provide services to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and/or stalking victims may submit a Statement of Expertise if they demonstrate that they provide legal representation for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and/or dating violence. If the nonprofit, non-governmental, or tribal victim service providers or governmental rape crisis centers has expertise in providing legal services, an MOU is not required. In lieu of the MOU, the applicant must submit a statement describing its expertise providing legal representation if legal services will be provided by in-house attorneys. This statement should be provided on agency letterhead and signed. Electronic or typed signatures do not satisfy this requirement, and it should be dated by the authorized representative. If you are a victim service provider who will be contracting with individual attorneys and not a legal services organization, then you can submit a statement of expertise, not an MOU. But you should demonstrate in the statement of expertise the experience of the attorneys that will be providing legal services. This is the same certification that we discussed earlier on pages 7 and 8 of the solicitation. This certification must be in the form of a letter or agency letterhead and signed. Electronic or typed signatures do not satisfy this requirement. It should also be dated by the authorizing official. The signed certification letter must be uploaded as a separate attachment in grants.gov. A sample certification letter is available at Appendix F. Pages 20-23 provide information about additional documents that will not be scored during the review process, but they should be included with your application. Failure to include any of this information may result in your application being removed from consideration from funding. Please review these pages carefully. All applications are due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, February 1st, 2018. Applicants are strongly encouraged to begin the application submission process at least 48 hours, but no later than 24 hours before February 1st, 2018. Applicants must obtain a DUNS number, register online with SAM System and Grants.gov, and submit an optional letter of registration no later than January 16th. Again, refer to Appendix B for a sample letter of registration. An applicant should submit one application for the same project per program. And if an application submits multiple versions of an application, again, OVW will only review the most recent version submitted. OVW offers several options for an applicant to provide advance notice to OVW if receipt of its application will be delayed. Applicants should thoroughly familiarize themselves with the requirements as outlined by OVW in the chart on pages 26 through 27. An applicant's request to submit an application after the deadline will be considered by OVW if all of the steps outlined in the solicitation are followed. Only in rare circumstances are extensions granted. Failure to begin the registration or application submission process in efficient time is not an acceptable reason for a late application submission. Generally, food and beverage costs are not allowable, and under no circumstances may OVW funding be used to supply food and/or beverages during refreshment breaks. OVW may approve the use of OVW funds to provide food and/or beverages for a meal at a meeting, conference, training, or other event if one of the following criteria listed on page 28 applies. Justification for an exception listed on page 28 must be included in the budget narrative, and funds may only be used to purchase food and/or beverages for a meal at a meeting, conference, training, or other event if OVW approves the specific expenditures in advance. Applicants may not use any OVW funds to conduct research. However, up to 3% of the budget may be allocated for the purpose of assessing the effectiveness of funded activities. For example, funds may be used to conduct pre- and post-testing of training recipients or for victim satisfaction surveys. In conducting such testing or surveys, grantees may not collect, analyze, or disseminate any information that would disclose the identity of an individual. OVW generally does not allow pre-award costs. Please be aware that costs incurred prior to the start date of the award may not be charged to the project unless the recipient receives prior approval from OVW. Please see the DOJ Financial Guide for more information on pre-award costs. There is a link to Financial Guide on page 22. On page 30, there are other submission requirements. Please review this section carefully to ensure your ability to submit your application on time. Applications will be subject to a peer review and programmatic review. Applications will be scored based on the degree to which the application responds to each section and addresses each element of this section. Furthermore, the applications will be scored based upon the quality of this response and the level of detail provided. Each element must be addressed in the section in which it is requested. Points may be deducted if the applicant does not include the information in the appropriate section, even if it is included elsewhere within the application. Each section will be reviewed as a separate document and will be scored as such. Information regarding the review and selection process begins on page 31. Successful applications will receive OVW award notifications electronically from the OJP Grants Management System GMS, not grants.gov. This award notification will be sent to the individuals listed as the authorized representative and the point of contact on the SF424 form for the application that was selected for funding and will include instructions on accepting the award. Recipients will be required to log in, accept any outstanding assurances and certifications on the award, designate financial points of contact, and review, sign, and accept the award. The award acceptance process involves physical signature of the award document and terms and conditions by the authorized representative and the scanning of the fully executed award document to OVW. There are a number of administrative and national policies required listed on pages 33 through 34 of the solicitation. You should review them carefully. Please use the application checklist on page 35. This checklist will also help you ensure that all required documents are included in your application. Lastly, we have some tips that may improve your chances on becoming an LEV grant recipient. Please note that the following list is not a guarantee that you will be funded, but it is included as a guide to navigate you through the OVW application process. Please read the solicitation in its entirety. It is important to make sure you do not miss out on any important information by just skimming through the solicitation and just focusing on the How to Apply section. Read the application and contact an LEV staff if you have any questions. Allow plenty of time to gather required information and submit well before the deadline. Although this is not required, more time will allow for any unforeseeable obstacles such as power outages and natural disasters. A missing or incorrect DUNS number or an expired SAM registration are some of the reasons an application may get rejected. Applications are also rejected because the files with names that exceed the grants.gov 50-character limit or that don't follow the no special character rules, or the files are saved in the wrong version of Adobe Acrobat, or we receive unacceptable file types. Please ensure that you follow the requirements with grants.gov. If you have any technical questions, please reach out to grants.gov directly for troubleshooting or feedback. Headings can be a big deal for the reviewer. It is important to keep your audience in mind and make it easy for them to read and review your application. Use the heading and subheading titles that are in the solicitation. This will help the reviewer more easily follow the application. Please keep in mind that reviewers will only use the information contained in the application to assess the applications. Be sure the application and responses to the program requirements and expectations are completed and clearly written. Don't assume the reviewers are familiar with the organization, service area, barriers to legal needs in your community. Keep the reviewer in mind when writing the application. Organization, organization, organization. I cannot stress this enough. Many applicants fail to receive a high score because the reviewers cannot follow the thought process of the applicants or because parts of the application do not fit together. Treat it like a puzzle. Let the pieces fall into place. What are the issues in your community that you're trying to address? Is it in line with the purpose area of OVW priority area? Make your points understandable. Provide accurate and honest information, including candid accounts of problems and realistic plans to address them. If any required information or data is omitted, explain why. Your budget should also reflect back to the proposed activities. Print out the application before submitting it to ensure appropriate formatting and adherence to page alignment requirements. Check to ensure that you included all attachments before submitting the application. Also, number your pages in your application. This will also help the reviewer track and ensure you are following the solicitation formatting and instructions. Be sure to include all necessary attachments and label them appropriately when uploading them into the system. Cross-check and double-check. Points will be taken off for those items missing that are required. Use acronyms judiciously, if at all. Remember, the reviewers are not familiar with the community and will not be familiar with acronyms that your organization and project partners may use. And again, submit all information at the same time. Creating checklists can be fun. So, create a checklist for all supporting documentations to make sure you submit a complete package by the deadline. If your name and contact information is listed as the point of contact, please monitor your inbox. There are times that the system may reflect your application and you will need to make sure you are getting those alerts. Lastly, please contact our office if you have any additional questions. Thank you.